I'll let you get us started, and then we'll go from there. And thank you all for coming.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for coming. Hope this information will be helpful to you as you decide whether you will apply or have friends or family who are interested in applying. My name is Joanne Campbell, and I'm the Executive Director of Valley Community Development Corporation, which is the developer of the property. And just sort of give you a short timeline. So for those who are not familiar with the site, we are a little bit more than halfway through. The construction units will be completed by August 1st, and first folks will be moving in September 1st. And so there are 38 units here, 4 studios, 8 one-bedrooms, 18 two-bedrooms, and 8 three-bedroom units. There's a community building on site that has laundry facilities, coin-operated, for folks to be able to use. There's also a playground on site, covered bike racks, some open space, a little pocket park. Community building will also have some community meeting space in case folks need to use it for some events that you personally want to have, and also for property management to have meetings. And there'll be property management office there as well. So I know people will have questions, so that was my short introduction. And we are working with Have Housing, who will be handling the property management, the lease up, answering the very specific questions you have about the application or the specifics about applying. And there will be long-term property management and the compliance that's required through all the various funding sources that it took to put this project together. So we have Faith Williams from HAP, Warren Miller, Miranda Taft, and Me Wynn is from Valley CDC as well. So Faith, are you going to?
I'm going to start. We also have out in the audience we have Rudy Perkins, who's been part of the development team as well.
And should we just know that we have Jessica Allen here, city planner, here as well.
Great. Well, again, thank you everybody for coming here. I'm going to try to give you kind of an overview, sort of a programmatic overview of the property, and then answer any questions that you might have. So I want to start off by saying that it's a 38-unit property, as Joanne mentioned. 8 of those units have a project-based mobile voucher attached with them. Many people are familiar with the Section 8 program. These are Massachusetts Rental Housing Voucher Program subsidies that are attached to the units. There are only 8 of those, so only 8 of the units receive a subsidy. Mobile Section 8 vouchers will be more than welcome. And those MRVPs are for just the 2 and 3 bedroom units. And the allocation of those units will be determined through a lottery, as will the allocation of all of the other units at the property. This property was funded primarily. There's a kind of a laundry list, but the primary funder is the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, which is designed and operated by the IRS. And so the IRS is always very anxious to get a lot of information about all of us. And so it really is a process where our job is to find qualified people to occupy the units and then ultimately manage it. But that process can be sometimes very invasive. It can feel like we're asking you a lot of questions and asking you to provide a lot of documentation. And we understand how much we're asking of you. We're only doing it because we're required to do it by the program. So we do that initially when we move you in, and then we're also required to do that annually. We have to recertify everyone's income annually. So through the process of becoming a resident at Parsons or other properties that are funded through low-income housing tax credits, we will ask you a lot of questions. We'll get to know each other very well, and hopefully we'll be able to do it in a respectful way, but I just want to give you the heads up right away, right up front. And I will say that occasionally I will have calls from people who are leasing up at another property, and they'll say to me, so-and-so is asking, not a property that we manage or that we own, that we have no involvement in, but the property manager is asking me for my next 12 months worth of income, and they want me to document my last 3 years of income, and they want my divorce decree, and they want to know if my ex-husband is paying for summer camp. And all of those are questions that we will ask everyone because it's a requirement of the program. So I don't, we have to deal with everyone's income individually and privately, but I just wanted to give you the heads up that it's pretty complicated, and we do ask a lot of very invasive questions. Warren Miller is property manager, and Dorinda Taft is also, actually Warren is a vice president at TAP, and Dorinda is a property manager. We will be collecting applications through the 27th, and then we'll be pre-screening those applications. We're actually pre-screening them as they come in. All qualified applicants will go into the lottery. The lottery will be held on May 4th. And then we will be notifying people of the number that, where they came out in the lottery. And it's been our experience that you might be the absolute last person that, was pulled in the lottery. You might still end up with a unit. It works out that way that sometimes, people back out, something else happens. But we will notify you once we've conducted the lottery, what your location is coming out of the lottery. Warren, do you know how many applicants we currently have?
We are currently at right around 100 applicants right now.
And we're hoping to at least double, maybe triple that by the time all of the applications are in. I think that for right now, that's all that I wanted to say. Did you have some other stuff that you wanted to say?
Covered it pretty well.
Okay. A couple of sort of housekeeping things. There are these packets, they're over there, and they do have the information sheet on the front. And then there's a little greeting from me telling you how happy I am that you're going to apply. And then we do also have a frequently asked questions sheet, because a lot of the time you'll walk away from listening to me talk and you'll say, I don't really understand everything she said. So we try to include in here some things that you might think about when you're at home. Again, the program requirements are long and complicated, but in this packet and on that one sort of flyer sheet, it does give you income guidelines. So the income guidelines for the units that do have the MRVPs are stated in one column, and then the tax credit incomes are in the other column. And so what that means is if you earn more than that number in that column, then you would not be a qualified applicant. You have to be, for the regular tax credit units, you have to be at or below 60% of area median income. So it gives you your family size. So if you're a family of 3 people, your income cannot exceed $46,440. And we really do look at all aspects, as I said, if you have child support, alimony, income, any kind of disability payments, Social Security, pensions, if you own a house, if you've sold a house recently, we look at all of that and we calculate your income and we calculate your assets and we add it all together, and that's what determines your eligibility for the property.
Did you say the asset is not added into income, it's the interest that you
are earning from that asset, right? That's correct. Thank you, Joanne.
Is the minimum that you have to earn the 30% column?
No. The minimum that you have to earn is really, that's determined by your ability. In some cases, it's determined by your ability to pay the rent. However, if you had a mobile Section 8 voucher, that impacts your ability to pay the rent, because you're only paying a percentage of your income towards the rent.
What's the significance of the column, 30% AMI?
The 30% AMI is for the project-based MRVP units. You cannot earn more than that to qualify for one of those units.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
That's the 8 units you mentioned.
That's the 8 units.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you send or leave the applications with?
You can mail it, there's a mailing address on the application. You can also fax it to us. You can email it to us. On the front page of the application, it gives you the address, it gives you a fax number, it gives you an email address. You can also, if you wanted to hand deliver it to us, you're welcome to do that.
Where is that?
But that's at 322 Main Street in Springfield.
In Springfield?
Yep.
It's like hardly anything, like, I don't know what it is.
Given that the rate of smoking in East Hampton is 33% higher than any geographical location in the state of Massachusetts, according to the research that Julie Dickinson revealed and that's online, making 51% of the citizenry of East Hampton smokers. So in any random sampling, you could expect at least 51% of your tenants to be smokers. But you're designating this as a non-smoking property,
Yep.
meaning that nobody is allowed to smoke inside their dwelling, or, is this true, on the property of the
Yep.
dwelling. How do you plan to enforce that in a smoking-dense city?
Well, we have already 19, properties under management, and we take seriously if someone reports that, their neighbor or somebody on the property is smoking. And we will do physical inspections of the unit. We document that, and then after 3 violations, they're sent to our attorney.
Okay, so
And-
you
and
give
the-
smokers
and
3
the-
chances.
Yes, and the report that we've had back from Housing Court is that Housing Court is now taking this seriously, and they're not asking for any sort of third-party verification or documentation. So the Housing Court has to some extent changed how it deals with these issues as well. Sure.
Do you have preference, like, where you're from, maybe like East Hampton residents, that has nothing to do with it, like who's selected? Or
There
just
is a
lottery?
local preference
Oh.
that comes out of the lottery. Or the local, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Yes, there is a local preference, and that's how we conduct the lottery, based on the fact that there is a local preference. So we'll pull a pool of only East Hampton residents, and then we have an open pool. And all of the East Hampton residents go into both pools. It's not only residents, I apologize, it's also if you have a child in school here.
Or you work in
here.
town.
So you don't have to live here, but you have to either have a child in school here, a child in school here, or that you work here. And not just for the city, if you work anywhere.
How many people in East Hampton will be selected? I mean, is there how many people that you have to select? I mean,
It's 70% of the folks that are selected. So out of 38, 70% is 28.
oh, wow. I didn't realize-
But,
You have to work
and I did go to a lottery training today, so I may give you way more information than you want, but because I'm trying to remember it all. So you, as a local person, you wind up in both the local preference pool and in the open pool. And it is perfectly possible that you could have a higher number on the open pool than in the East Hampton pool. So that's why we pull you twice.
Yeah.
Is it then averaged or
Nope.
something? No.
It's really done by...
It's just the
you get
highest
put-
number you get.
You get put there, or actually the lowest number.
Do we know yet, out of the 100 people so far that have applied, how many are from East Hampton? And
Not off the top of my head, no. I mean, I am tracking it on a spreadsheet. It will all go in and be broke down before we actually have the lottery, because they are pulled into, like Faith was saying, in 2 different pools. The other thing, though, that you have to keep in mind, so are you East Hampton residents?
I am.
Right now I'm not, and I don't
Okay.
work here.
So that you're not discouraged about the fact that 28 of those 38 The local preference is for the lottery purposes only. So once the lottery has happened, we'll begin processing applications. People will fall out. People will change their mind. People will not qualify for one reason or another, okay? That is when we start. The 70% is pulled, and it's pulled originally. Those are the first 28 apartments that we're going to be looking at and hopefully assigning, questioning, talking to. Of those 28, typically in this line of work, 1 out of every 4 applicants is going to qualify. Okay? I'm not trying to scare you, but that's just the attrition rate because of the guidelines. The people decide that they don't want to go through the paperwork. They've decided that they don't want to live in East Hampton now, that they're going to move to North Carolina or Oregon instead. They don't want to wait until September when the complex opens. So that's just the attrition rate on an average. So when we look to occupy and do a lease up on a property, we are always looking for a minimum 4-to-1 ratio on how many applications that we get. So far, of the lotteries that we've done, we have gone through the entire initial applicant pool,
Local and open.
And still had apartments to fill. So you're better off not worrying about the 70% preference, because the effect in this market, I won't say is negligent, because it does give those people the first opportunity, but based upon historical information, we will go through this entire applicant pool before we start going to other applicants that came in, or other applications that came in after the lottery.
Is there a lease, and when is the annual certification? Is it on the anniversary of your
Yep, there is
occupancy?
a lease agreement, and the lease agreement, kind of like all the other things we do, is very long and complicated, and it kind of spells out all the funding sources and that sort of thing. And then, yes, your recertification is done 12 months, on a 12-month cycle.
Faith?
Okay.
Yeah, just real quick, pet friendly?
No.
Okay.
We will consider reasonable accommodation, and a lot of the time people think if they have a service animal that it's considered a pet. It's not. If it's a service, if it's a registered service animal, then it is allowable through a reasonable accommodation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I might have missed this because I was here a couple minutes late, but you're saying it's completed in August, so you're anticipating move-in of all the units by September? I just know a friend of mine who's waiting for a new apartment in the newly done
Cottage
Street thing like this, and she's had several delays on her move-in date, and I just didn't know,
So
that could potentially can happen here.
It certainly could. A microburst could go through town tomorrow.
Right.
We're anticipating that we'll be able to lease in September. That's why we're not saying August. We're giving, we think it's going to be done before September, but we're giving ourselves a little wiggle room. But I will tell you that sometimes does happen, as with Cottage Street. So,
Though we should say is that the construction has gone really well.
Yeah.
It's a great contractor, and we're really, any sort of hidden kinds of problems should have been discovered by now, so
Right.
no more snow.
The weather is starting to cooperate,
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
we're not getting those type
Yeah,
of slowdowns.
We are
and
very
stuff,
much on
so.
schedule.
and I even have heard that, so as construction's going along, you go through and you see how things are doing, and you make lists of all the things they haven't done. And I'm told that list is minimal,
short list.
and they're really taking care of things in real time. So I think that's a real I can't give you a guarantee, but I think it's a real possibility.
One other quick question is, if I financially qualify and I get this apartment or whatever, and when I go to recertify,
Yep.
if I have, gotten a raise
Yep.
from my employer and I go over that,
Yep,
does that mean that
excellent
I'm not
question.
going to be able to?
It's a one-time deal. So you get a raise, you win the lottery, you inherit $100 million, you're fine.
Okay.
It is really on entry. Now, but I will say this, back to us becoming very good friends and us asking you a million questions.
Right.
We're going to ask you, do you anticipate getting a raise? And we're going to ask your employer, do they anticipate you receiving a promotion or a raise?
Right.
And so we do have to factor that in.
Initially.
Initially, yes, initially, and ever after, it's fine. You really could become Bill Gates. You could marry Bill Gates and move him in.
So, I do want to add 2 caveats to Faith's statement, okay? One of them is that, like she said earlier, and I want to make sure that I reiterate because it kind of plays off of what you were saying. Even if you won that $1 million, okay, we will come back next year and we're going to ask you for your bank statements and all of that kind of information.
Right.
So, as far as income goes, once you income qualify, you are always income qualified. Here's
As long
my
as you move
caveat.
in. You could income qualify and not move in, and then that's.
Correct, correct. Here is the caveat that I wanted to add. There is a stipulation in the tax credit program that student status is not that way. So, like Faith was saying, we're gonna get intimately involved. One of the things that we have to ask you is whether or not all of the members of the household are students, because the program is not set up as student housing. So one of the questions we'll ask is whether or not all of the household members are full-time students. So you can qualify at move-in by having, one person that's not a student. Don't care how old, don't care how young. 5 years from now, all of the household members could be students. At that point in time, barring 5 exceptions to the rule, and if it ever happened, we would go into those 5 exceptions. But if at any point in time that the entire household became full-time students, at that point in time, it is possible that you could no longer be qualified to live at the complex. I will tell you, the odds of that happening, extremely slim. I have seen it happen once, and at that one point in time, the lady, we did have the ability to move her into another apartment on the complex because it was not covered by the same program. Okay? So, can it happen? Yes. Does it happen? Not often.
And the only other thing I'd say about the income thing is that your income can become, $100 million a year. Your rent, you'll receive the typical rent increase. Your rent isn't going to be based on you're now earning $100 million a year. The rent follows the rent restricted rent guidelines.
Could you say something about the construction materials and off-gassing and to what extent it's green construction, zero or low VOC, particle board? I've been reading a lot about that and off-gassing.
Rudy, can you take that one? Rudy or Joanne? Is it low VOC on the paint or is it no?
That I don't remember if it's
No
low or
particle
no.
board.
Yeah.
It's
Zero VOC on painting, and what about low VOC?
I'd want to check on the paint. Typically there's zero VOC, but I don't remember the specs on this, if it was low or zero.
And if I, for example, am chosen in the lottery, would I be able to get the specs on that? Because I have multiple chemical sensitivity. and I'm concerned about off-gassing.
Sure.
It's probably the architect could help us out with that.
Yes.
So if you want to leave your, well, you want to wait till you're chosen, and or do you want to find out ahead of time?
No, I'll wait to see,
Okay.
you know, because it sounds relatively, it sounds like it's very conscious, you know, they're not just,
Yeah,
Right, it has
I'll leave some of my business cards, and you can email me, and I'll get the exact information.
okay.
I'm going to go to the person in the front row and then you.
Just to go back, sorry, the pets, you said you're not pet friendly unless it's a service pet. Does that include, say, if you're disabled and you have a cat, you know, to,
We'd ask you to
Accommodate.
complete the reasonable accommodation paperwork.
okay, but it could possibly
It could,
work.
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
That's often the case.
Okay, so I have a service animal.
Yep, and
And
you're-
I've been
that's-
everywhere with
that's
it.
not a
I
pet.
just need to know what licensing you're speaking about that is acceptable to this organization.
So, one, we can treat it as a reasonable accommodation, and that's another whole set of paperwork. And it just, so what we do is, we ask you to, or we submit paperwork to typically a physician, or in some
I have
cases.
doctors,
Yep.
and
yep.
I have a placard.
And they basically say, this, you know, this is an animal needed.
Okay.
We don't want to know what the nature of your disability is, just that there is a service animal in place to address a disability that
So
you
there's
have.
no other formal licensing that
No.
you're requiring?
There are licensed service animals.
It depends on what you mean by licensing. You know, the
well,
town of
yeah.
East Hampton may require a dog license or
Yeah.
something along
Yeah.
that line, so you would be required to have those. You would have to then give us, you know, pictures of the animal. We
Proof
would
of
need-
rabies shots.
We would need veterinary records to prove that they've had rabies shots and that type of situation. So, you know, those type of rules and regulations are in place, yes.
Okay, thank you.
During the initial application, if you have some documentation that was pending to maybe meet qualifications, and now we have them, should another application be filled out? Or I'm just worried about being kicked out of the pool as far as being qualified, or should we just redo it and send in the additional financial information if you already asked for? Because it sounds like you're going to be asking even more.
Oh, yeah.
So should I not worry about that, or?
How about if you talk with us after the,
Okay, sounds good.
unless other people are curious about the answer to that question, because I have to ask you some follow-up
Sure,
questions, and I think
sure.
it's better just one-on-one. Did you have your hand up?
I did, but now I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Can I ask about opportunities if you don't, or if you weren't able to, if you weren't selected,
Yep.
but you otherwise income qualified, what would opportunities be after the initial occupancy? Just keep in touch with you in terms of?
We will put you on a waiting list,
Mhm.
and then as units become available, so, you know, let's say you're interested in a 3-bedroom unit, we would know that, we would put you on the 3-bedroom waiting list, and when a unit becomes available, we would contact you and let you know that it's come available.
Oh, so you'll work off the waiting list for an indefinite period in the future?
Yes, but we also continue to accept applications.
I just wonder what kind of heating it is, like, is it kind of heating?
It's electric heat through, the last meeting that we had the kind of heating units in the room, so that was great. They're called mini splits. The heat and hot water are included in your rent, but they are both heat, they provide heat and air conditioning. And so they're something that sits on the wall and is controlled by a thermostat, and regulates the heat and the air conditioning.
Yeah. This is all up, is this something modern or newer?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it's energy efficient.
Energy efficient.
As are the buildings. The walls are like
12 inch.
they're 12-inch thick, super insulated walls. We manage another property in Amherst that was built under many of the same specifications. On that site, during the spring and fall particularly, if the resident, when they are home at night, they open their windows and allow that cool air in, close it, go to work or go to school or, you know, wherever it is that they want to go, that apartment is so insulated that it practically maintains the temperature throughout the day. So the insulation on these is extremely good. They have told the residents at those complexes that if you're coming in with an older air conditioner, to get rid of it, because you will actually cool your apartment down too much. You don't need that much, what they're called is BTUs, but you don't need that much cooling because they are so insulated. You do not get the cooling loss through the walls and stuff that you would in a typical apartment.
Go to this lady over here. She was.
So I have a mobile section 8. That's okay still for the one bedrooms?
Absolutely.
I thought you just said something
No,
before.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it says on-site parking.
Yep.
First of all, do you know how many parking spaces there will be
72?
altogether?
76. 76.
Is it reserved parking for each person or no?
Nope.
So, i.e., if you have, you know, two people in the place drive or something like that, it won't be a problem, no?
I think parking will be tight, but I think that we'll be able to accommodate that. Because I don't think you're going to find every household with 2 cars, since there are some studios and 1-bedrooms that, you know, so our hope is that it won't be a problem.
Okay.
You don't have any pictures available or architectural renderings or whatever of what the...
We have the architectural
well,
drawings
not
over
this
there.
the diagram of what the apartments look like, but like what it's going to look like when these appliances are there and... You
Well,
know,
we don't right
that
now,
kind
but
of
what I
stuff.
will
And
say
are the
is-
walls going to be all white? Or are they going to be different colors? Or, you know, that kind of
I
stuff.
tried to change the colors.
I don't know, just wondering.
Like this wall.
Yeah, the walls are not pure white. We, and most apartment complexes, at least the ones that I have worked at in the last 15 years, have gotten away from the white on white on white. The walls are they are a tan color. The doors and trim are a darker tan. So the doors and trim are actually darker than the walls. The appliances are black, aren't they?
No. Ours are white. I seen one the other day, it was black.
Yeah, I
The
think
stove,
it's
the
black.
range
Black,
hood.
the stoves are in, I think they're black.
Oh,
Yeah. Because I saw
So-
a range hood and that's why I was
So
saying,
what I would
so.
say about that is that...
I mean, not that it's going to make or break it, but just to know.
Hey,
No,
hey, you're
there's-
gonna live there. You want to, you want to know that you're gonna like living there. What I would say is that the first building is going to be completed soon, and we're going to be opening a management office in there. And so people will get to see what the units actually look like. So we'll have one unit available that we're going to use as an office and kind of as a demo. So all of the finishes will be the same. You know, the layouts are a little bit different depending on the size of the unit, but you know, you'll get to see what the finishes are, what the colors are, what the floors look like, what the
Closet
bathroom
space,
floors,
all that.
closet space, all of that stuff.
And today at the construction meeting, they're estimating that they'd be ready with a temporary CO on May 1st. So
Awesome.
around that time.
Good.
Is it well lighted, like on the outside, like for security?
Yep.
It's pretty well lighted.
Yep, I believe it's well lighted, but it also is taking into
According
consideration.
to what the regulations are in East Hampton, and not too bright, that
Because you don't want
brings a
light
lot of light, but
pollution.
enough light that people out of their cars can safely navigate the property.
And also like how, like when for getting in and out of the apartment, if you have like a fob or if you have a regular key?
Key.
Key.
Yep. I'm going to take her
Go
question.
ahead.
Okay, if I was per se to get into the, you know, the
Yep.
apartment, do you have like an association where people can get together, like a group, like a...
Residents,
No,
something.
a residents
Like a resident-
association, or
We're,
somebody that's gonna, you know...
We as an organization are working to develop that. And so they're probably, not the day that you move in,
Right.
but
That's
we are
something,
working
yeah,
on that.
That would be great.
When that back to parking again, do you have to have a sticker on the car probably?
Yes,
or-
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Two things. You mentioned something about this place in Amherst and people bringing in old air conditioners, but it says the air conditioning's included,
Yeah.
so you don't have to think
Correct.
about that here.
Right, he was just
So
talking
it's
about how.
upper and lower is going to be all air conditioning,
Yep.
central air
Yes,
conditioning
yes.
with these whatever wall unit things you
Yep,
have.
there is a split system both upstairs and downstairs.
Other question, is there, and maybe, and then this is a larger question, maybe why, when the project was developed, is there no like solar panels on the roofs or anything like that?
So, I can answer
You
that
can answer because we've all been in the conversation.
So,
I mean, if it's all so energy efficient and insulated and all this other kind of stuff, why wasn't that part of the?
So it certainly is something that is a goal that we want solar on the roof. We we started going down the road with a company, and that was not a company that we felt comfortable doing business with. So we've taken a couple of steps back. We're hiring a consultant to come up with a specification so that we can put it out to bid. Our goal, it is not absolutely 100% certain that there will be solar on the roofs. That is our goal, and we're hiring a consultant to help us with that, both find installer and to help make it happen.
So
that is
initially, we did not have enough money for construction to purchase the photovoltaics ourselves, and so we always planned that we would construct the building so they would be PV ready, meaning all the conduit and all the wiring and everything was set up. And so we expected we would be leasing a photovoltaic system, and as we've gone down the path, as Faith explained, we haven't found a group that is sophisticated enough to handle all the complications that that we need to pay attention to here. So we've learned a lot, and we're going to be learning more, and I think the consultant will help us figure out.
But we even just made some changes on some of the tree heights just in the past few weeks to put lower trees in where we might have solar panels. So we've really set it up that we can do that in the future if that works out. There are other possibilities, though, for us to possibly use off-site solar arrangements that cover a number of the properties. So we're not absolutely sure we'll have solar panels, but we're actively looking at that.
So two questions. One is, you said there aren't going to be assigned parking spaces. If somebody has a physical disability, would it be possible to have a disabled space near the apartment that they're in?
Yes, yes, there is. And I only look and smile because there is one, the entire property is what is called visitable. So there is no step up, there's no step on the property, except when you're going from the first floor of the unit to the second floor of the unit. To accommodate that, there is an accessible parking space that is not as close to the unit as I would have liked, but for the most part, they are placed in close proximity to the units that have the features for someone with limited mobility.
Okay.
And second question?
The second question is, if I have an MRVP,
Yep.
would I have to go through a recert with them and
Yep.
with you every year?
Yep. Same with Section 8. The good news is, that you're providing the same packet of information. We're asking for virtually the exact same. So if you're getting it together for one, then you're going to get it together for the other. So, the silver lining, maybe not, but
You're like a client.
Oh, sorry. Where I'm at right now, I can't stay there obviously, but we have, a 3-bedroom and a regular floor, but we also have a cellar, okay? Now, I keep my, things that I want to store in the cellar. Is there going to be a storage space?
There's a small storage space associated with every unit, but there are no basements.
So this storage space is like a shed? Or what?
Yeah, shed attached to the rear yard.
Okay.
I don't know the square footage of it, though.
All right, thank you.
How many washers and dryers are going to be provided, and where in this place is it going to be?
They're in the community room.
Right,
So
that's
the
that
community
building
room
there.
is right here.
Okay.
And are there 3 of each, Trudy, or 4 of each?
That's what
I was just
thinking.
Is
We
it
do
3 or 4?
3 or 4.
It's 3 or 4.
It's 3 or 4.
One of the things about appliances, like do you have He'd say, what do you have, like dishwasher, garbage disposal, and also outside trash?
I can answer that. So there's no garbage disposals. Only the 3-bedroom units have dishwashers. So studios 1s and 2s, there are no dishwashers. So there's an electric stove and a refrigerator
And a vent hood.
and a vent hood.
Is there a microwave?
No.
You bring that.
No, you bring, that would be your own.
Yeah. And how about trash disposal, like is somebody?
There will be dumpsters on site.
Dumpsters.
There are 2 dumpsters.
That refrigerator, is that full size?
Yes.
Yeah.
Full-size refrigerator.
And it should be Energy Star, I believe, as well.
Yes.
1 dumpster here and 1 dumpster here.
Well, dumpster enclosure.
Dumpster
So-
enclosure.
And then there'll be
Right.
recycling.
And there will be recycling and that sort of thing as well.
Is the heat regulated? Like my mom lives in a complex and they have those new,
Thermostats?
well, they're like, I don't know, it's energy efficient, so it shuts off at certain times of day and then turns back on? Is that the type of?
These are actually controlled by the residents in the
Oh,
unit.
okay, I'm
And
just
it's, so
wondering.
it's a temperature setting like a regular thermostat,
Now-
except for it looks like a TV
Remote.
remote controller.
That's the same that she has,
So,
okay.
but I don't honestly know the system well enough to know if there are presets that there aren't. Okay.
Well, at least not a there's not a,
Okay.
it shouldn't be that. There's not a maximum preset. I don't know if
Okay.
there's a limit on the
Okay.
air conditioning.
Well, I just meant that, during the day, if we're gone,
You can lower it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You'll
yeah,
have
yeah.
control,
Yeah.
remote control.
You
Someday you'll be able to
can
control it
lower
by your
but
phone.
Typically, these systems are most efficient if you pick the temperature you like
Right, and
and
leave it
just
there.
leave it there,
Yeah.
because these systems require more energy to boost the temperature back up.
Oh, okay.
They're not as efficient as if they're just running a constant.
And when people move in, there'll be orientation.
Yes.
So because
Yeah.
this is a new system and for property management as well, and for us, and it'll be new for most tenants moving in, there'll be information or maybe a training at the community building to show how these units work.
What about like if you have dish TV or cable TV or direct TV? Is that okay?
It's
to have-
cable ready, and it's Comcast?
Charter.
It's charter.
Is it cable ready for every room or no? I.e., if you wanted a TV in the bedroom, is it cable ready for that?
Rudy's
I'm
gonna
gonna have to check on that.
find that out.
What about
A lot
landline
of
phone?
good questions. I shouldn't-
Landline phone,
That's through Charter also.
so you can get a landline.
But it's through your cable, not
It's through
through
cable.
Your cable.
a
It's
land-
not
regular
like Verizon.
This is not wired for Verizon.
And the DirecTV and satellites and things of that sort.
No, we don't do that.
What about like Wi-Fi and the internet? Is that, I assume is ready for that?
That would,
Yeah,
yes,
that's-
yes, yep.
You mentioned the dumpster areas
Yep.
and the recycling and whatever.
Yep.
Because most of the units are not going to have garbage disposals, are you going to have a compostable recycling as well or anything like that?
I think we would consider something like that. I mean, we would, those kinds of things are better tested once you're there than looking at a plan.
Right.
And so there are considerations both ways in terms of vermin and that sort of thing. So I would certainly, I compost at home, so let's, when we're occupied, let's have that conversation.
This gentleman over here.
Jim, I'll do you after, I pointed to her and then you.
Sure. Is the management office right there on site?
It's in the community building.
If there's any problems with something old, like breaking or fixing?
Yep, so there'll be a site manager there, pretty close to full-time, not there every day of the week. But we also have a 24/7 emergency call number, so you can report anything to them. And what they do is, so we give them a list of what's an emergency and what's a routine repair. If you call them in the middle of the night because you don't have heat or that sort of thing, that's deemed an emergency. If you call in the middle of the night and say, I don't know, what's like, some minor thing, we'll say, okay, we'll deal with it tomorrow. But what they do is they contact us. They also send me an email update every morning of all of the calls that have come in. So we follow up with everybody to make sure that the issue's been addressed in a pretty timely manner. Jim?
So for the two
accessible units.
Yeah.
Are those one bedroom and a two bedroom, or two one bedrooms?
Yeah, it's a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom.
Both accessible units?
Both accessible, yes.
1 and 2.
We also have a sensory accessible unit.
Right.
For
What does that actually mean?
it means that if you have a hearing loss or are blind, then if you have a hearing loss, the alarms are strobed and that sort of thing. And if you are blind, then they're
Auditory.
Yeah.
You said that we could get Wi-Fi or, internet. Does that have to go through the cable, or can it, any type?
It's through cable. It's through
Has to go
charter.
through the cable
It's
no
through
matter
charter.
what?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that is something tenants will have to pay for themselves.
Yep.
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 And again, the landline is through charter?
Yep.
The landline.
Yep. Well, you guys have asked some awesome questions, and I thank you for coming out. I want to talk with you individually, but we're going to be here for a few more minutes. If there was a question you didn't feel comfortable asking in front of the group, just come on up, and we'd be happy to talk with you. If I could, can I just, yes. And I would remind you, if you have the opportunity and you haven't already, if you could sign in on the sign-in sheet over there. Somebody asked why we're doing that. The people who give us all of the money to build these properties want to make certain that we're engaging the community as much as we possibly can. So they want to know that we've had these meetings, and they'd like to know how many people came. So that's why we're collecting.